So here it is. So here's the
Maybe on a
definition of a
boat.
traditional woman and also a modern woman. So a traditional woman is this. She's typically seen as someone who is more conservative, aka religious. She's family oriented and focused on domestic tasks such as cooking, cleaning, and child rearing, raising the kids. And she is not bothered, here's the catch, she is not bothered by the power dynamic shifting in the man's favor, aka men lead, women follow. That is what a traditional woman is. Now, the definition of a modern woman, she's more independent, she's career driven, she's focused on achieving her personal goals. Having a family and children is not a priority. She's open-minded and she's willing to challenge traditional gender roles, and she's comfortable leading a relationship. So now let's just have the women answer. What do you more identify with? Are you more of a traditional woman or more of a modern woman? Emily, go first.
I think I have a mix of all. I'd say people who are listening to this podcast would probably say I'm entirely a modern woman, but I think there's a lot of sides of me that you don't always get to see.
Okay, so fair. So why don't you give, so maybe it's not 100 and 0, so why don't you give a sort of a formula? Is it 80-20?
Oh, a percentage?
A percentage, yeah.
I don't know. Probably 70, 30, 60, 40 around there.
Really?
Leaning more towards modern.
No, we got
Just
that
because,
part. But
I'm glad.
But you would say, what would make you that 30 or 40% traditional?
I think a lot of me wants to be like submissive and allow the man to lead and give him the space to be the man in my life. And I just want to take me. Just go. Just do your thing, and I'll be here, and I'll clean up after you, and I'll cook, you know.
But she will shake her ass on a yacht.
Yeah, I will.
So sort of the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Jamie, how about you? Give us maybe a percentage.
I feel I'm like the same way. It really depends on like who I'm with and, you know, and how they lead. I like a man that leads, but if a man isn't leading, like I'm going to make my money, I'm going to do my thing.
But you are independent, career driven, you're focused on your personal goals. Having family and children is not your current priority. So you're definitely challenging traditional gender roles. So what would you say your percentage of modernity versus traditionalism is?
I think that in a relationship, those dynamics are more like I prefer the traditional.
So a
but
percentage.
like if I'm single and I'm on my own, then yeah, my mom was a single mom, and she taught me to take care of myself.
Are you really going to have me ask you one more time the percentage?
I am not, you know. Do I look like I do math?
No, she doesn't. So 100% not a mathematician. That's what we'll go with right there. I'm actually very curious to hear Brody's answer here, because you explain your story. You grew up in Israel.
Right.
You kind of took off.
That's dope.
to
You're beautiful.
Stop
very
you.
beautiful.
Beautiful.
All right, now you're hitting on the
guys
girl to
are
the left of you and the right.
Got me excited now.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brody. Give your story and what your percentage is.
I'll
And
try
maybe
to
you
give it
can
as
think
quickly
about
as
that number.
possible. Grew up in Israel, where traditional masculinity is kind of the norm, even just looks-wise. The men are tall, dark, very thick hair, and also they just embody, you know, masculinity. Every man has to do military service for 3 years, women also, but less time. So I would consider myself, back when I was leaving Israel, a little bit more of a modern woman. And now that I'm in the States for about 4 years, I find that I'm much more connected to the traditional woman stereotype.
So when you were in Israel, how did you identify versus where you were at now?
When I was in Israel, I mean, I feel that in each person there's an internal balance of masculine and feminine. I was probably embodying a little bit more of my masculine energy. I did the military for 2 years. And then just leaving, I felt like I really needed to like fight my way forward. So you need to be strong to do that and rebellious. And now that I'm comfortable and I'm content, I find that I'm much more feminine and much more soft. And all I want is like to find my husband, to have a family, and to be traditional housewife.
Okay.
That's sexy.
So
Stop
now
it,
you would say,
That was sexy.
as far
If you
as
want percentage.
is it fair to say that you were kind of running away from being more traditional? You kind of became more of a modern, I don't want to say feminist, but
Classical
more like
feminist, maybe?
classical feminist. I'm gonna do my own thing, be independent, and now you've seen what the other side looks like, and you're like, let me kind of go back.
Yeah, that's exactly right. In Israel, it's like you're in the Middle East. It's different there. You come to America and you're like, what the fuck, dude? This is not how it's supposed to be. Relationships are all sorts of messed up. There's no balance between masculine and feminine here. No. So that's my take.
What's the biggest difference in your mind?
I think that there's a rebellion from both sides against what we are wired to think and to be. Excuse my grammar. English is not my first language as well. So yeah, I think, stop it.
You're so cute.
You're so cute. I love you. So I just think that women are working really hard to push away what makes them feminine and soft, and men also feel like being masculine is not the way that you're supposed to be. Mm-hmm. So they're also saying, no, I'm not, don't worry, I'm not toxic. I'm not, and you can see it based on the role models that we're following. Lizzo is the women's biggest role model. And for men, it's people like Sneeko or people, who are fresh and fit, which there's no problem with Lizzo, there's no problem with them, but it's interesting when you look at society and who they admire. For
sure. Well, we're going to touch on what's going on with the men. Kiana, you were raised by, your parents are still married.
Still married.
Still married. How many? They've been together how many years?
35 years.
Okay, but you.
So like where she said, like she was groomed to kind of just see that maybe I'm in America, but I see my mother do the same thing, and it was just like I want to get out of that box, and she kind of taught me to be different. Like I might came on here and said that different, but the reason why I think like that is my mother said I never want you to be like me. I want you to do bigger. I just don't want you to do that.
Please explain what that means. Your mom, who raised you and you're still close with, obviously it's your mom, married to your dad, friend. 35 years, best friends. She encouraged you to, quote unquote, not be like me. What does that mean exactly?
Because I empower her. Some of the things I did, she didn't do.
Such as what?
Just living life and experiencing it and makeup. She's very... regular. She don't do much.
She's basic.
And I just call my mother's basic, but she's a bad bitch because she's basic. Halle Berry, beautiful.
Okay.
But for me, it was just like she pushed me they put me in modeling school. They put me in different things in Hollywood to boost me to be somebody. So it wasn't like I fend for it. I wanted it. They seen it. So they. And
what does your mom do for work?
She's a teacher.
She's a teacher.
Mother's a teacher.
Okay. And percentage-wise, what would you categorize her as far as being traditional versus modern, and what would you label yourself?
She's both.
Okay.
She's both, because she taught me how to be the woman I am today, and at the same time still be married and still do what she do.
Gotcha. Now, who leads the relationship for your parents?
My father.
He's the leader.
He's the leader.
Okay.
But she's how can I say it? He's the head, but she's the neck.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, she's the one who really hold the household down. Give a woman some sperm, she can make a baby. Ooh. Give somebody some food, they make, give grocery money, they'll make the food. So she was always his backbone.
So I just learned, give a woman some sperm, she'll make a baby. Mm-hmm. Give her some meat, she'll make a sandwich. Is just what I just heard.
We gotta always have that development.
Very interesting perspective. Lucario in the house, you're hearing these women talk.
Right.
Okay. Now you're out there, you're married, you've got a girlfriend as well. Just, best of both worlds, having your cake, eat it too.
Right.
Based on what these women are saying, who's capping the most? Right. And what do you see out there in the real world?
Well, this is the thing. I always say this. What you got to understand is that you can't talk about how women are without talking about men, because women are only how they are in direct correlation to men, period. So this is why even the whole concept of the modern woman is now happening, because the modern man, or you could say the modern male, has dropped the ball, meaning men have become weak, so women had to be more masculine. Inferior. You feel what I'm saying? So now what happens is that a lot of guys, they're up there, sleeping on the couch. You see what I'm saying? They have loser stuff like man caves. Like, a man should not have a man cave. That makes no sense. Your whole house is your cave. How do you have a man cave in your house? So what happens is a lot of guys acquiesce to women, so they're taking the lead that women are, doing. Like, even, for example, they had that cover with A$AP Rocky and Rihanna the other day on, I forgot what magazine it was. Yeah. And she's in the picture.
Are you able to pull that up, Nat?
She's in the picture leading him. You see what I'm saying? So a lot of men want to be led by women nowadays. So therefore, you have more of the modern women, quote unquote, just being in the lead because men have dropped the ball. So anything that's happening with women is in a direct correlation to what's going on with men. So women are going to switch up or do a certain thing based off the man they're dealing with, period. So if you're asking a woman, are you modern or are you traditional? It depends on what guy she's dealing with and what leader in his leadership, what he put into place. You see what I'm saying? So that's how that works.
Okay. By the way, Nat, can we show up that picture of ASAP?
I have it, but we don't have it.
Okay. Anyway, you can Google the picture. But here's my question to you, because great point.
Right.
The woman will only do essentially what the man does. But you've been in a situation where you would call yourself more of a traditional man, yeah?
Mm-hmm. I would basically just call myself a man. I don't know if traditional, just a man.
I'm just a man. You're a man's man.
Who has his own thing, right?
So my point is this. So let's say you walked into a situation with a woman, and you're like, this is how I operate.
Right.
What percentage of women are going to be like, all right, let me get on board with you when they first start dating you? Meaning they're already they are.
Right.
I don't see women sort of switching it up, at least initially, for a man.
No, and that's the thing. A woman switches up when she sees value in the man. But usually women don't see value in a lot of men nowadays because men don't see value in themselves. So a lot of guys are talking about when I got to get my looks up, I got to get my money up, my status up. That's going to make me attractive. But it doesn't because there's more there's a lot of good looking guys. There's a lot of guys with money. There's a lot of guys with, status or whatever you want to call it. So what makes you different? What makes you valuable? And so a lot of guys don't have their own identity. Right. You understand what I'm saying? So you might have, for example, you could go to a bunch of restaurants to get a burger, right? But there's only one place you can go to get a Big Mac.
Best burger.
You feel what I'm saying? So a guy has to be the Big Mac. Don't just be a regular burger, because if you're a regular burger, you're not really valuable in the woman's eyes because you're not actually being you. You're being what you heard on YouTube, or you're being what you heard in the Red Pill. You're being what you heard in the Manosphere and all that other nonsense. So this is why women are the way they are today, because I always hear guys say, well, women are doing this and women are doing that and I'm like, bro, you have to look at yourself. That's why women are the way they are, because you're the way you are. If you would understand your value, women would listen to what the hell you're saying. They're not listening to you because they don't see value in you. It's that simple.
And you do a lot of one-on-one consulting?
Yeah, one-on-one consulting.
What percentage is it male versus female?
I say it's about 75% men, 25% women.
Okay, so mostly men.
Right.
So Mark, you deal with 99% women.
Correct, yeah.
Correct. So we're having this conversation about traditional women, modern women. I mean, you deal with a lot of women.
Yep.
So what are sort of the biggest takeaways you say with dealing with women, especially with this concept of modern versus traditional?
Yeah, I mean, I always hear the same thing from women, and that is that I actually, if I can trust a guy and if I can actually be in that feminine role and if I can actually relax and have him make decisions and have a guy that can take the lead and be alpha, that's what I would love. But I also want to be able to have a relationship where I can express myself and where there is a little bit of communication. We're seeing more and more, this is the big change now, with women being more educated and having more, in general, money from those education. We are seeing women who come to relationships now, it used to be 90% physical, financial, and then a bit of emotional connection was kind of gravy.
As far as what women were looking for in a man.
Exactly.
You said physical, financial, in that order?
Physical, financial was most 90% of it, and 50 years ago, a little emotional connection was gravy. Now, with women being more educated, they don't need men quite as much for that financial side, and they certainly don't need to stay in relationships they perceive are emotionally unsafe. So they're wanting a lot of those alpha traditional values, but they also want a guy that, hey, every now and then, can he show a little bit of vulnerability? Can he communicate with me? Men are notoriously, we find this very difficult to have some of those difficult conversations, to tell a woman our boundaries or be honest with her or confront topics. And women are now much more willing than they were 50 years ago to say, okay, well, I'm here not just physical for financial needs, I'm also here for my emotional needs as well. And so if you're not filling that third bucket, I'm happy to be on my own. So it's the traditional stuff with a modern flair, which is I want the guy to be able to communicate with me as well.
So if you like that clip, click right here to watch another, or if you want to watch the entire Soscast, click right here.